I felt, seriously, the first time I listened to it, I'm like, I don't feel like I fully understand what's happening.
That's a good way to put it. It's like I don't know if I know what's happening.
What's going on?
Yeah.
I'm just like, it sounds great though. So I think he's streets ahead.
Good afternoon, beautiful people. This is another episode of Album Mode. We review a new album every single week. We look at the lyrics, the production, the overall aesthetic of the album, and how that album fits into the context of that artist's career. My name is Adriel Smiley, a.k.a. AdrielSmiley.com, a.k.a. Adriel Smiley Official, a.k.a. The Godfather. For all the beautiful people over there on YouTube, please like this video, share, and at the end, leave us a comment. And for anyone who's not subscribed, get your life together and go ahead and subscribe. Joined, like we are every single week, by His Royal Highness, a.k.a. the Bunny, King Grant.
What's happening, people? We're back. This time, it's also with our producer, Chris, and it's also with Sampha, Lahai.
Yep.
He has dropped his newest album. It's been the first one since 2017.
Yep, 6 years.
So it's basically, I want to say, kind of a resurrection. You know, we call this, in K-pop, they call it a comeback. When people come back. And
in K-pop.
in the K-pop spheres, they call it a comeback, right? When you drop your album, you go on a little bit of like a hiatus and then you come back. This is a resurrection, okay? Because in music, the speed that music is moving at currently, if you go dormant for 7 years, 6 years, you're basically dead. Right? So for Sampha to be like, hey, new album dropping. It's coming out this week, this month, this year is a big deal because if you think about 2017, More Life just came out. What else was happening in 2017? I can't even remember.
It feels like a million years ago, to be honest with you. But it was a different time, I'll tell you that.
Pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Different American administration.
Yes.
So a lot has changed. But Sampha, he's here. And he is doing what type of genre? That's my first question because I was listening to this project the entire time. And the first time I listened all the way through, I'm gonna be honest with you. I said I love it, but I have no idea what I'm actually listening to. In a good way, though.
No, I know what you mean.
Because I'm like I love it, but I'm like, what exactly am I listening to? So, what do you think? What genre is it in? Or is it like a genre, like Pollen on Spotify? Yeah. Is it like a Pollen type of deal? What do you think?
Definitely making that Pollen for sure. But I would say it's kind of genreless because, I saw a lot of people saying that we should think of Sampha as an electronic artist.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
That's something that, you hear people who have been Sampha fans a long time. I only heard about him in 2017 when the process came out.
Me too.
But there are
Drake put me on.
Yeah, no. For this time, I'm with you. That Drake put me on. This is the time that we're aligned. But apparently he'd been known as an electronic artist before that. But the process was not as much of that electronic feel as this project.
Right.
And so, I guess for this project, I guess we had to call him an electronic artist. I thought about what you said about Georgia Smith, how she may be making the wrong genre. I think this is where you think she should be. I feel like what Sampha's doing with his production is kind of maybe what you want Georgia Smith to be doing. Am I right in that?
I would say so, but I would say that she is more house. And I think that Sampha is more... I don't even know. It's not even trance. It's kind of like,
I don't know. What do you call this?
That's why I'm asking. Like, I don't really know. This kind of reminds me of when Frank Ocean dropped Blonde and nobody knew
what genre.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think maybe there's someone who has, more than knowledge to explain what his production style is and his sound. But I don't feel comfortable putting it in one box right now. A couple things off the top I wanted to mention before we get more into this review. Now, he put out this tweet on the 24th of August. Lahai, my grandfather's name, my middle name, my next musical chapter, my next album. And then at the bottom of that tweet, he has just a bunch of words. And I'm assuming this is kind of describing the project. So this is in his words. Fever dreams, continuums, dancing, generations, syncopation, bridges, grief, motherlands, love, spirit, fear, flesh, and flight. And one thing I do think we gotta highlight, because I'm sure we're gonna get to when it comes to lyrics and when it comes to the cover, him becoming a father between the last album and this album. That's something that's just, I think you can kind of feel it in some of his lyrics as well, but that's something that's, I think pretty important to note. And he's known a lot for his features. It's been 6 years since a solo project. The reason why we even know Sampha is his features. 4422 on Drake's More Life, Too Much on Drake's Nothing Was the Same, Saint Pablo on Kanye West's The Life of Pablo, Father Time on Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Don't Touch My Hair on Solange's A Seat at the Table, and My Eyes on Travis Scott's Utopia. Do you have a favorite of that group of those notable Sampha features?
I think the Nothing Was the Same, Too Much was I think my favorite, and that I think is like my intro to Sampha at all.
Yeah.
Which I think Nothing Was the Same was 2013.
Yeah.
So there's a way that literally 10 years in the past. Then that's when I got introduced to Sampha at all. I think the one with Solange is actually really good too.
Yeah.
He's got that's one thing about him is that he is a feature monster. He is so good when it comes to features, in the sense that I feel like his voice stands out. So it's like so distinct that he is able to kind of color any sort of song that he's on in a sense that's like more remorseful, sad.
Yeah.
I don't want to say sad because it's not really sad. It's more reflective or pensive.
Remorseful, I think is right. Yeah.
So I think that because his voice is so distinct in that way that it actually helps his features so much. It's so crazy.
Yeah, I think that's the right vibe he brings, is like he brings a song's energy down in a way that no one else can. You know, and the song's speed could not have changed, production could not have changed. Where you insert his voice, you see the difference. You told me that you had this hot take about Sampha, Lahai. I want to hear it. What's a hot take that you got? I want to see if it kind of aligns with what I have, because I feel like there's a chance of that.
I think Sampha is making the music that everybody and Daniel Caesar himself thinks he's making.
Wow.
I think he is making this kind of like, it seems as though he's in a room by himself, like an all wooden room, and he's like singing to himself or reflecting. And I think that's what Daniel Caesar's, especially the latest one. I forgot the one. It's like with the neon white dude with the blue and black background. It's like something 001 or something like that. Is the name of the album. And I think that I think that Sampha is just roundly outdoing him in every sense.
That's so interesting. I never put those two together.
Really?
That's interesting. What makes you think of Daniel Caesar when you think of Sampha? Because I have someone else in mind who I think is a lot closer. But what makes you put those two together? Because I think that Daniel Caesar is really more of traditional R&B. We wouldn't have that, questioning of what Daniel Caesar's genre is.
That's
when
true.
we did his review. We know it's R&B, and he's even become much more upbeat in a traditional sense since he started out. Sampha, even though there are a lot of dance elements production-wise, he keeps it pretty mellow for the most part. The person I thought of here is Mustafa. And I think that Sampha is the evolution of what Mustafa is kind of working towards.
Okay.
I think this is I think they both, put out music very infrequently. They have in common. But I do think if you, fast forward 5 years from now in Mustafa's career, it will be something similar to what Sampha is doing. I think production-wise, he may not enter that dance space like Sampha is. I don't think that's, as much of a Toronto thing. For sure. But I think that's what I think of what this is like. Sampha is the predecessor to Mustafa, and this is where Mustafa is kind of quote unquote trying to get to.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I think that the folk space that Mustafa is in, its natural progression, even though it doesn't really seem that way, kind of does move into this. When you add more elements to that folk style of music, then it becomes more electronic.
Yeah.
I would say Sampha's music is more based on the piano versus Mustafa's is more guitar centric. But I think that I totally see that. I just think, honestly, Sampha is just like steps ahead right now when it comes to Lahai. I know we're at the very beginning of the podcast, but I do think he is steps ahead of people when it comes to this. I just think he's just doing something completely different. When you get to the point where we're questioning, what genre of music is this?
That's a good sign.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
That's a good sign.
Because like, what genre of music is this? And we're not saying, what genre of music is this? This is trash. We're like, what genre of music is this? I don't really fully understand. I felt, seriously, the first time I listened to it, I'm like, I don't feel like I fully understand what's happening.
That's a good way to put it. It's like I don't know if I know what's happening.
What's going on?
Yeah.
I'm just like, it sounds great though. So I think he's streets ahead. Streets ahead.
This is, part 155 of artists from the UK being ahead of their contemporaries.
Facts.
I
feel like we say that with every UK artist.
Every single episode. Production-wise, my first question to you is about Stereo Color Cloud.
Yeah.
I think, we talk about him being genre bending and not knowing where he's at. I think Stereo Color Cloud as an intro is interesting in that sense because it does kind of set us up for that. It's like you can't say you were surprised after hearing Stereo Color Cloud as an intro, but how did you think about that as an intro, especially for an album like this that goes in so many different directions?
I loved it because I feel like he kind of like a lot of the songs I noticed kind of just like punch you in the face. Like there's no warm up to songs, like for this song in particular, Stereo Color Cloud, which is a tongue twister of a name, but it's just like immediately the piano, like the keys. Yeah, right? And I'm just like, I feel like that is the warm-up, basically, but it's already like at a hurried pace.
Yeah.
Which contrasts, I feel like his singing overall, such a lethargic singer. Not in a bad way. It's just like he sings so slowly. I think that it sets up this really good contrast. I liked it a lot. I think that was a good intro, despite his speed of singing being like the complete opposite of what the production sounds like at the beginning.
I thought it was a good intro. I think, it does a good job of what an intro was supposed to do in terms of preparing you for the project. Like, when I listen to this album more than once again and again, the intro, Stereo Color Cloud is one of my favorite songs off of this. I think in a vacuum on its own, I don't know how many times I'm going to run to Stereo Color Cloud. But when I'm listening to the album as a whole, I'm like, okay, we're back. We're where we're supposed to be. The one that stood out for me from the early part of the project is Dancing Circles. He has that B switch kind of in the third part of the song, I would say. And I didn't notice it at first, but I was like, okay, this is definitely one of his signatures of like, piano, lack of drums for an extended period of time, and then the drums come in. Brent Faiyaz does that a little bit. I was
just about to say that.
But with Brent Faiyaz, the drums don't even come in.
Yeah.
It's like you think they're coming and they just don't happen. So that's something I noticed a lot with this project. There's a few other songs where he does it, Satellite Business is one, Inclination is another, but it's that like long lead up. And I thought it's interesting because usually in dance music, that lead up builds to a crescendo where it gets crazy.
Yeah.
And he's not doing that.
No, not at all.
It is a beat drop, so there is some kind of, punctuation there, but it is not turning into this whole different thing. So I thought that was interesting from a production standpoint of like, he really kind of tempers down how hype this album can get, because those are times when it's like he could really go into a whole different tempo, double time and get crazy. And on Dancing Circles, you see that he doesn't really do it. The beat drop is cool, but it's still like a kind of, moderate tempo and it doesn't change the whole vibe of the song. So I thought it was interesting where these songs really could have been super
huge.
hype. Yeah, super hype. And he said, you're getting a beat drop, but it's not what you think.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's and I think that this album, Lahai, shows a lot of mastery in small spaces. Like it likes like small details. Like halfway through Dancing Circles, like there's an additional set of keys that come in. Even in like something like Satellite Business.
Yep.
Where basically Satellite Business is basically like if you just wanted to play that like 5 times in a row and just like latch on to a little portion of it each time you could do that. Like one of my favorite parts is the distortion like midway through that if you were just like this is what happened to me when I was listening to the music like on my headphones, where it has like this like kind of like reverb, like crackle, and I thought it was my headphones. And then I was like, hold on a second, that happens every time in the song. And I brought it back, and it's part of the song.
I had that moment too. I know what you're talking about.
So like that reverb, like that crackle is cool because it adds that extra texture of like, the satellite business, and it's got all this cybernetic, synths happening inside of it, right? Even though it still maintains this like this slower pace. I just think that I think that it's just like a cool small effect. And considering how like airy everything is and how slow Sampha sings and how slow the songs can be, to add those little like nuances, those bells and whistles, keep you interested in the song long term. I think the song without it would be great, right? But having those little parts, I'm like, oh, okay, like, because then you're like, what if it happens again? Or if there's another new twist or something like that, So I think that having those small things is really dope. And even like even the cybernetic sound going through like the verse, right? It's great.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that I think those small details, miniature, bro. We're talking about distortion.
Yeah. Someone's probably hearing that for the first time on this podcast, being like, I didn't even know that was there.
Exactly. But that's the thing with especially satellite business in particular, is like just tons of miniature details inside of it. The vocals that like seesaw from like the ear to ear, like it's like 115. Yeah, 115. Right? Where you hear like the seesawing vocals that go from like literally ear to ear. There's cool things like that, or like that really make songs like this pop. And I'm also, you listen to me praising a slow song when you've been leading this hate train hate train against me, saying that I don't like slow songs. I like slow songs. It's got to be interesting though. So that's what Sampha is doing. He's keeping it spicy.
Yes,
despite the pace.
It's like a little pop of color because I feel like his music is very cinematic.
Yes, me too.
Like it really feels like you're in a movie and the worst thing just happened to you. You know, insert high school movie here. He just asked this girl out. She said, "Get out my face, you gremlin." Sampha is the perfect music for that time. So I feel like that quality remains on this project, even with the more up-tempo parts. That quality still remains.
Yeah.
This was probably my favorite song my first time around on this project. And we got to find out what your favorite song is too before we get out of here. Is like Only. How he starts that, that is, I think a different style than a lot of the rest of this project in terms of getting right to it. Now, of course, it's Sampha, so he can never get right to it. There still has to be some lead up. But what do you think about him on that production? Because that, I think, is also, more similar to the American style R&B production. And I would say more similar to his contemporaries. I don't think a lot of people, sing on beats like that. I think that is still unique to him in that sense. But I could see someone doing something similar to that more than the rest of this project.
Yeah, like the thing that makes it North American is that it's they're trap drums. Like that tick, 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 tick.
Yeah, those hi-hats, yeah.
Is what makes it North American. And I think that it works. I think it sounds good. I think it works because it still has like the guitar flourishes throughout it.
Yeah,
he's still singing. He's a beautiful singer. His singing is so airy, so delicate, so light, which are things that you don't really attribute to a man who sings, right? But he's able to achieve that, and I think that ticking keeps I think a lot of the biggest. Hold on. I think one of the most important things to Sampha's music is pace.
Yes.
Right? And I think this allows for him to be like a little bit faster in his music by having that tick, right? Even though in trap music is slow, but he uses that tick to keep it up and allow it to be more energetic. This is probably the most energetic song on the entire project.
Easily.
And I don't know if you listen to this and then listen to Daft Punk, and we're like, oh yeah, this is energetic.
not even close.
It's not even close. But I think that it works in that sense, that it allows him to be more upbeat, more energetic, while he doesn't lose himself. Because his singing, he's gonna sing he can sing one word at a time.
Yeah.
And I feel like he'll still make it fit. So I think it still works. It's not as spectacular because this one is like, I know what genre it is. I know what's happening exactly.
Yeah.
The other stuff, I'm like, I don't really fully understand what's going on. And that's part of like the serious appeal for me.
Yeah. I think the only is something he should do more of. I do think that his voice is kind of when we talked about Giveon, even though we didn't love his album, his voice is so unique that on certain sounds, it's like, listen, not the best from you, but your voice is just so unique here that it's helpful. This is when I feel like that as well. Only, add any other singer into that mold, it's not sounding how it does when Sampha does it.
Right.
And so I think that he needs to do more of that. I feel like that production style, even though it's
You think so?
Even though it's regular,
Yeah.
I think that it's like he has this gift of his voice that is so unique, where it's like a song that's regular won't be regular if he does it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like he needs to really do more of that.
I think if he's trying to make a hit song, that's what I think he should go to.
Yeah.
Because I think that he will still be an expert in that type of soundscape.
We're gonna come back to this. I think we're gonna come back to
right
this.
in that soundscape. I think he could probably try and make a hit song. But artistically, I'm like, bro, don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't be like everybody else.
Yeah, don't be like everybody else. You got a good thing going on. The reason why you're such a brilliant feature on everybody else's stuff is because you're not. You're so far away from everybody else that people want you on their music to create a completely different space, right? So I guess like I'm okay with that song. That's probably my least favorite, actually.
Least favorite song?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's probably my least favorite just because I'm so intrigued by everything else. Like, for example, What If You Hypnotize Me?
Okay.
That shit is
That's fire, yes.
When okay, first of all, that song is total fire. I love that song.
Crack.
Love that song. And I've talked about this before on other song or other albums is like Kingdom Heart keys or like Final Fantasy keys.
Yes.
This is what it sounds like where it's like you're in like, a castle in Final Fantasy and you're like about to be in a boss fight, or it's maybe like the lobby right before the boss fight. You pause the game
and you're just
you're just waiting, and like this is the type of music that plays. So like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, even like Dark Souls. Yeah. If you're a Dark Souls player.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that for him to harness that and for the beginning and then like a minute or 2 minutes in, then the drums come in and it's more of an electronic song. It's crazy to me. Like I think that song is brilliant. I love that. That's my favorite song I think he's ever done, to be honest. Yeah.
That's not a bad answer for a favorite song. I think this is to me the best example of him doing that like electronic sound.
Yeah.
Like I think when I hear What If You Hypnotize Me is like, this is I think where maybe you think that he would land when you hear that he's more of an electronic artist. I think the other experimental stuff is like not what you expect.
Yeah.
This is almost like only but electronic. It's like it is to be expected, but it works. My last notes are for production is a song that we've already mentioned, Inclination Compass. That beat at the end, again, probably the most traditional R&B-ish. I could see some American singers doing that. I think that this is probably the song I like the most of him kind of saving this to the end.
Yeah.
Because I think there are some people who they're not as familiar with Sampha. They maybe haven't heard the process since 2017. Maybe they only know the features and they're waiting for, him to sound like everyone else on that beat. And just making it, it's at 2:30 in the song. Like the song is basically done, And I liked that just because most of his beat switches aren't as traditional, and this is one that is. And so to make the one that's traditional so far in the song, it's kind of like, sorry guys, you're gonna have to wait.
Yeah, he's just throwing people a bone. It's just like, here, I guess.
And so it's like I like that, but I do think a mix of the inclination only sound with What If You Hypnotize Me, there's something there.
Yeah, the beginning of Inclination Compass also has those keys again, right? So I think I like that song too. The back end, I'm so deep in the Sampha experimentation part.
I know you're so here for it.
I'm in the experimentation weirdness space. I'm like, get rid of all the regular shit. Like, get rid of all the regular shit. Just give me the experimental stuff. Give me the weird stuff because I'm here for it, bro. I'm so in.
Yeah, no, I'm here for it too. I do think though that he hasn't showed us something he's really horrible at yet.
Yeah,
you know, it's just your taste, and so I feel like with that, you know, there are more things he should try. For lyrics, this song I have for lyrics, I was gonna mention in production, but we can just all put it together now.
Yeah,
and that's Suspended.
Yeah,
and
Suspended
was one of those songs where, you know, I liked it first listen. You know, you can do that like on Spotify and just add it, you know, got like a quick plus.
Yeah.
And when I came back to it, I was kind of cleaning my room, cleaning my kitchen, and that song came on. And, you know, I kind of turned and looked at the speaker as if it was going to tell me something. Because I was like, oh man, this song's even better, you know, a few times in. And what I thought was really cool is, you know, the double time singing he does on the second verse, and even more distortion at the end of that verse. He does the effect again. You know, it's like borderline Sampha rapping. Yes. So I really like that he just said, yeah, fuck it, I got this, you know, and got into his Busta Rhymes bag. And then, you know, the course of the song, Suspended, the name of the song, when you think suspended, you done something wrong. Yeah. You in trouble. You kicked out of school. You done something wrong. And in here, suspended he's using it in the other sense of like being held up, you know? And I can't remember a song where someone is talking about, you know, love that makes them feel like they're floating and phrasing it as suspended, you know? So I thought that was interesting. Is like when you see suspended, you don't think of, no, it's not like it's a secret definition, you know? But we just don't think of, you know, suspended in that way. On verse 2, when it comes time to do his double rap, he says, still a mystery, the feelings I ignore, like running from what I've been looking for. In between the moments, each one like sliding doors. I was in and out, time don't make sense no more. In another life, we were two birds that soared. In another life, I don't know who you are. I'm a troubled mind, reality divorce. That's where he's at.
Yeah, I love that. I actually had that highlighted too, so I'm so happy you picked that up.
I love when we're on the same page. But I think Sampha is one of those artists where his lyrics seem deeper because he sounds like that.
Do you think so?
For sure. I like his lyrics, for sure. But I think that like all people who don't even actually know what he's saying, and just feel like he's a deep artist because of, you know, the sound, his voice. You know what I mean? It's like he kind of, I don't want to say he suffers from that because it helps him for sure, but it's almost like Lana Del Rey syndrome, where it's like, you know, he could really just be he could sound like 21 Savage on these songs.
Facts. He could just be saying whatever, but you're like, it's so poetic. Listen to that vocal, bro.
You know what I mean? And so this is a song where I thought about that as like, he is saying stuff on this song, you know, he's talking about like a very, very deep love and even like some confusion of like where he is in life and, you know, where he's at. But I thought about this song because this song is so good, but he does have that effect where it's like he could be saying anything. That's kind of why I brought D'Angelo's album. Is anyone's D'Angelo fan knows every album he gets more and more inaudible. You know, the mumbling just takes another level up every single project, and you know it's D'Angelo, so we know he is saying something, but he could also not be saying anything. You know, because we don't really know what he's saying some of the time. And Sampha has that quality. So I think on Suspended, you know. It's one of the better songs on here, and his lyricism shines. But I did want to highlight that because I know there's some people who don't know anything he's saying in some of these songs and are fans regardless.
That's true. I feel like one thing that his music it's kind of like buried treasure is like if you really like read the lyrics, because when he's singing it definitely doesn't sound like the words are really connected. Or like the phrases or the lines are connected, but you have to like kind of like read it and be like, oh, what is he talking about? And then you kind of have to like do some actual thinking to figure out what the fuck he's singing about.
Got to turn your brain on,
yeah. So I think that's great, but so that's why I'm like, it's kind of like hidden treasure when it comes to his lyrics. I do think that when he's singing like in the hook, when he's like suspend the vocals. I'm melting in the seat, bro. I'm like, I feel like it's like my soul is coming out of my body when you're singing, you know, that suspended part, right? So I think that even when it just comes to the vocals, not even the like full lyrics, just like the vocals, being able to elongate that one lyric suspended and actually make it feel like you're suspended when you're listening to it is like major strength. I feel like he does that with a lot of his songs where he takes the like last syllable in a word and stretches it, right? And because all of the production is so airy that it adds to the airiness, and then it like allows everything to breathe overall. So I think that I love Suspended. I love that part that you were talking about. I think that he has a lot of themes of like, we should talk about like the themes of Sampha's music. Love, safety. I feel like he comments on like feeling safe around people a lot. I think Jonathan L. Siegel, he's like, I puzzle into your embrace, now take me further away. I puzzle into your embrace, now take me further away. Puzzling into one's embrace is something that I have never heard somebody say that before.
That's a crazy place to be.
Being able to like fall into somebody's arms, but to say puzzle into your embrace is like I've never heard that phrase. And then take me away, right? So I think that safety, love, sometimes like a little bit of like remorse, where like you kind of like, did they break up or?
Yeah.
There's one song that I'm trying to remember where he's like, I'm trying to read it and be like, did they break up or are they on the verge of breaking up? Like, what exactly is happening here? And he's like really in that space of like introspection. I think is probably the best way to describe his music. It's super introspective.
A lot of introspection.
Yeah. There's even here, okay, here's Stereo Color Cloud. This is one that I want to highlight, where Finding Peace is another one.
Yes.
Where he's like, I see you mirror me, we oscillate around each other's smiles. I think we found ourselves in a sacred place, a space to dream out loud. Zero in on your eyes, the safest place for this troubled child. Are you dreaming? So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's heartwarming, you know, like just like being able to feel safe, being embraced. Somebody likes you and you feel that connection, and like, you know, I feel like he's really zeroing. That's a weird space to be in. I feel like not a lot of music focuses on that currently.
Nah, he's definitely in La La Land. That's what I'm saying. Like, his music is definitely giving La La Land. On Dancing Circles in verse 1, that's one of the parts that I like. He's always had this in his music where I wouldn't call him political, but he waves at political issues. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. He doesn't actually go there, but he waves and says something. And why I mention this is because I think I'm interested in how Sampha's music is going to grow. Obviously, it's been 6 years, and his last album was his debut album. Yeah. So we're very early kind of in that progression of where...
His record label must be fuming right now. It must be fuming.
Where he's going to go. But I feel like he may not have this like ethereal sad boy thing going on forever, you know? At some point, he's going to smile. And at some point, things will change. On verse 1 in Dancing Circles, he says, outside in London, just waiting for you. Blackness, flickering fasces. Look at the ashes. Look up in your hair in full view. We talk about life, talk about children. Look in your eyes, talk about crimes. Government lies, like ain't nothing new. Had you trembling by the roadside on the north side. We talk about movement. We talk about how we missed the groove. There's some themes of this back on Process. To talk about crimes, government lies, ain't nothing new. Again, alluding to it. He's not gonna get political. He's not gonna name names, but he's just, you know, saying he sees what's going on. Yeah. Especially because Sampha's music is not gangster music. You know, I don't know if y'all got that by this past 30 minutes so far.
Like, just look at the album cover, my guy.
Yeah, like this is not YG 400. Like, no. This is a very different project. But he's always talked about being adjacent to those things, you know, and knowing they're going on, being aware of those things. You know, in the beginning of the verse, talking about just waiting for you outside in London. You know, it's very much that like honeymoon love of I'm just meeting you, doing things for you kind of thing. And I like that he talked about not a lot of people are on this. I don't know how old Sampha is, but I guess he's probably too old.
Yeah, to be he's honest, in his 30s, early 30s.
On this type of time. But I do think, again, he does such a good job of that. I feel like when he tells the story, it sounds more fairy tale in a good way.
Yeah.
That you actually want to live that life. And so it's like, I don't know that he should change his lyrics. You know, I don't.
Me neither. No, I don't think so.
I don't think that he should. But I'm honest to see if he does.
Right.
Because I do think that, you know, his music is one that will age well. You know, as his fan base ages, you know, his music can age with them. This is not Destroy Lonely. And once his fan base, you know, learns how to drive a car, it'll be a little different. So I think this is something that can grow. And I'm interested to see if it does. I don't think he needs to change, but I'm interested to see how that goes going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think that his music, I would say, is definitely mature in the sense of like, this is something you like sit down and listen to. I guess you could drive in your car and listen to it if you're driving really fast or something like that. But I don't think that you're not going to be listening to this at the club. Not happening.
No.
You know, listen to this on your ones, maybe your twos. If you're with somebody else, you and a special someone could be listening to this.
Hold their hands and cry for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think that his lyrics, I don't think he needs to change. I think that he's introspective enough that I'm like, okay, he can take it to, you know, other places and it would still maintain the integrity of his music. Like if he started making like music that was sad, because I would consider his music, although slow, happy. He makes happy music.
He's enjoying himself.
Yeah, he's enjoying himself. He's singing about love. He's singing about he's singing about feeling safe. Okay, safe happiness. That's a happy place. I think if he was gonna make it more like sad, I think it would work probably even better actually. Because sadness fits his sound more than happiness. He's kind of really finessing the happiness. Yeah, and I think that Dancing with Circles is actually the song that I was thinking about, where you read the lyrics and you're like, is he talking to somebody? Are they about to break up, or have they broken up, or is what's going on, right? So I think that he's also able to maintain that kind of like tension.
Yes,
right. There's tension in his songwriting. So overall, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, I have not said a bad thing yet. You know what I mean?
Listen, Demar likes slow music. I don't know if you guys heard.
Exactly. Thank you.
I've been saying it forever. But.
Thank you. These people have been trying to lead a crusade against me, saying that I can't sit down and listen to slow tracks. I told you, I love The Weeknd. Okay?
Yes.
Early Weekend. You cannot slander me. I was there. I was there is hilarious. I was there. I was outside. When Frank Ocean was just starting. I was outside when The Weeknd was just starting. I was there.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that songwriting is fantastic. I think the singing, fantastic. How do you feel? Do you have anything else you want to say lyrically about what's happening?
I got nothing else lyrically. One thing I wanted to mention while we talked briefly about, you know, the cohesion of the project. There's a hit song from Sampha. You know, you talked about his, you know, experimental sound, and how only would be where he would go for a hit song. I actually disagree with that. I think a hit song for him is definitely more in the ballad route. You know, I think
that's true.
I think, you know, it's obviously 2023. We haven't had that many huge ballads in a long time. You know, 25 years ago, that was like, you know, the formula. And the R&B soul ballad was like, you know, your runway to a hit. Adele's, I think, is the only person who's successfully, you know, done that repeatedly over this time. Ed Sheeran a little bit, but I think that is more where he's, you know, set for a hit, is like, you know, I think I was on a Thinking Out Loud that became so big. You know, if he had a Thinking Out Loud with his voice.
Okay.
So I just wanted to mention that because I think that, you know, he's had a bunch of these songs that are, I want to say, pseudo hits on other people's projects. You know, none of the songs that are from these other projects were the single except for Too Much with Drake. But I do think he has that hit, you know, coming soon, just in his own way. Of course, like, you know, a song that will be mostly keys, mostly ballad driven. That would be the hit for him. In terms of the cohesiveness,
you know what's to say something more about that the features is like he doesn't feature anybody on his music.
No,
even though he is probably like actually the most connected type of dude right now. Like he's done stuff with Drake, Solange.
Yep.
Kendrick, remember he did Father Time with Kendrick Lamar, right?
Yeah.
So he's kind of like, if you really wanted to,
No, he can have everybody.
he could have it. You could really actually have anybody on his music.
I named 6 songs at the beginning. Travis Scott, Solange, Kanye West, Kendrick Lamar, and Drake.
Yeah,
that's 6.
You're trying to get those people on your music.
6 alone is like a set for success. But there's a lot more where he's just additional vocals on big artists. So you're right. He could have.
You could have anybody.
He could have anyone.
He just doesn't feature anybody. So he has even eschewed that type of route where you have your song, it's good, and then you have the hit maker. You would have Drake going to number 1 probably on your song, and he just has not. He's just opted not to do that, which is commendable. I think that your work benefits from that as an artist if you're able to actually maintain a sound, find an audience, and all that type of stuff. You have no features. That's probably like the best case scenario, honestly. But you kind of sacrifice that explosiveness. His music is not explosive.
No.
Like this is not an explosive album.
Like what I think of his project is him not having features helps with the cohesiveness.
Yes.
You're in that mood. Like he brings you into that space, and because it's kind of sporadic production on so many of the songs.
Yeah,
it somehow fits because it's just like you see it coming, but it's not crazy for it to happen.
Yeah, you're already there in that space, so you're just kind of ready for anything.
Yeah, by song 5, you're like, listen, this beat could change at any moment. I also could hear keys for the next 90 seconds.
Yeah,
either of those things is possible, and so I think that especially because of the intro, that gives this album some kind of continuity because it's like. We know this is going to be all over the place in a sense. Kind of like we talked about 100 Gex, where it's like, it's not all one sound, but it's still, close enough. Yeah.
And also, if you can, I don't know, if you maintain like a motif in your music, then it can becomes like a window, right? Like that slides across, that central motif. Right. And so things from like different genres or different spaces can still fit. Right. Like sliding doors almost.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like you can have sliding doors, but there's a thing in the middle that connects the sliding doors to allow it to go back and forth. Right. And I think that's what he's established in his music. I think the airiness, like it being super airy, it being like.
It works for him.
Very free allows for, the cybernetic sounds that we were talking about earlier, allows for, the distortion to happen, but then it also allows him to do those elongated syllables to make it airy. So that space, that like negative space, basically that exists in his music, allows him to do a lot of different shit, and for it to not sound wild, right? It sounds like the album cover looks, where he's like floating in the air, right? So I think the cohesiveness, I think is really good. I think it all fits together. I'm up on this album. What do you feel about the cover?
I like the cover a lot, man. It is giving nothing was the same.
A little bit.
Just with the clouds. But I do think it's a cool shot, just, him from kind of a lower angle. I like the cover a lot. I think right now for covers, he's 2 for 2. Yes. I think that, he does have a unique look.
Yeah, the hair's doing a lot of work for him.
Yeah, the hair is giving Dusty Dread the Weeknd. And
they're freeform, excuse me. He actually has real dreadlocks. Those are real dreads. And they're freeform.
Yeah, okay, we'll call it that. And the mustache as well. So I do think that at least you get to see some of that in this cover, but I like this cover a lot. I got no problems with it.
Yeah, me too. I think that it feeds into the music. Right? The white, the space, again, that we're talking about negative space, right? Everything's white. That's negative space, right? Then it's also the clouds. He's in the air. I don't know. It's like he's got like foam peanuts or something. I can't tell what those white things are coming out of his hands.
Yeah.
They're like beads, maybe?
It looks like foam, the foam peanuts.
Yeah, they look like foam peanuts. Anyways, I think it's all working. I think that white space, negative space is working. It feeds into the album. The clouds feed into the album. It all feeds into itself. I think everything feeds into it, like the vocals, everything. Do you think that it's a no skips? Do you think it's a no skips?
I don't think it's a
You don't think which one? Which is skippable? Do you think?
I don't know if there's a song that I would personally. I don't know because Dancing Circles I like.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a song that I would skip. I just think it's too experimental to be a no skips. Mm-hmm. I think that all those beat switches is not for everyone. You know, I think you personally are enamored by that.
Yeah. And
I think that that can't be a no skips just off of that.
Really?
So these songs are good, but it's like, yeah, there's because I think not all those moments will hit for everyone. Now, that's something I can definitely tell. And it's like, there's so many of those where it's like more than one of those could not hit, you know? Mm-hmm. And then it's like, yeah, this song becomes a skip like that. It's like, yeah, I'll listen to the first 90 seconds of this, but you know, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, it's a no skips for me. But it sounds like you're ready to give this a no skips.
This is a no skips for me. Pretty easily, actually. I think that you can even just drop in on a song and then just let it run through, and it won't. I feel like it's frictionless, right? Wow. I think the sometimes the songs even transition into each other, but that airy motif that I've been talking about is maintained, so you can kind of come in anywhere. Like if you decided, you know, I'm gonna start at what if you hypnotize me, and then like that's the second last song, and you want to just like start it from there, you could do that.
You could do that. You could
do
that.
So that's why I'm like, I think it's a no skips because I feel like if you can drop in anywhere and just let it run, that's the essence of no skips to me.
Technically, yes.
Right. So it's a no skips.
Okay. I'm not mad at it. I personally don't have any songs that I would skip that I need to skip. Yeah. You know, I definitely see this album like, yeah, you could run this album straight. Like even when we talked about, was it last week where Drake's album, we had to kind of like, or a week before, we had to stop, you know, take a second. This album was not that, you know, so I think you're not wrong in that.
Yeah. Okay. Adriel, I want to hear your score first before I even say my score, because I think that where you are, I'm more curious about where you are than where I am, personally.
I think you're big. You're big on this project.
Yeah.
You're big on this project. For me, Sampha's latest project, Lahai, for me, it's 6.5.
Whoa!
Yeah, I wanted to get
Chris, what is this guy talking about?
I want to give it a 7.5, but
you need to explain some things to me, bro, because
I think personally, I just feel like this album is more for us than the average listener. I feel like the average listener is not going to love All Things Be Love as much as we do. I'm trying to think about the average listener. For me, I think this album's good, but I think a lot of these, you know, experimental choices for the average listener, they're just gonna not be able to get it and get hip to it. So I'm kind of losing points for that because I don't think this album is as easily digestible as it could be. I think there's a lot in this album that it's like, yeah, if you show this to someone, they could really not mess with it, you know? So for me, that I think is like, it doesn't speak to the quality of the album. It's more just the sound, because I do think it's like, there are certain, it's like, talk about Jack Harlow's last album, one before Jackman. Okay. That is very easy to listen to if you're a hip hop fan, no matter what part of hip hop you're into. You know, so this is not that. This is like, you got to have a certain, you know, eclectic taste to really enjoy this project. Okay. Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
6.5 to me is low for this project.
Yeah.
I think there's not that many flaws on here.
Right.
But I think I'm holding too much weight to that quality of, can I show this to someone else?
Right.
And I think that's probably where, like, you know, if it wasn't for that, I'd probably say a 7.5. Like, if it was me, like, listen.
Yes, if it's just you, that's what I want to hear.
Just me, it's 7.5.
Okay.
But I do think that has to be part of the quality of an album, because we listen to music so differently now, you know? And it's like, talk about the Offset album last week. I need to be able to be like, okay, here's a new Sampha, listen to these 4 or 5 songs, and you're good, you know? And I think that this album isn't as much of that as it is as a whole. It's like almost less than the sum of its parts. You know, it's like in the season, y'all are winning a bunch of games. When it comes playoff time, I don't know what's going on. So this album is the Philadelphia 76.
Oh my God.
No, that's true. You know what? Let me change my score. I'm gonna give this a 7.
Okay.
I feel like looking back, I'm gonna really hate myself.
I know. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no. Let me just clean slate. Okay. Right. I'm gonna give this album a 7 out of 10. Looking back, I don't want to hate myself for giving it lower than that.
Okay.
And comparing it to the Sixers, that's disrespectful.
Yeah.
Sampha is not Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid actually plays more than Sampha, for being honest.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But no, this album is really good. Like I think we're going to get to your score, and I'm sure you have this as a 12 out of 10. But this album is really good, and I think the flaws I have for this album, I mean, we're not going to listen to this album.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I'm looking at it, is like the things that are flaws in this project, the person who might find those as flaws probably won't even hear this project. So it's like, is that fair to do? But I do think someone like Sampha is, you know, in that borderline of like, a lot of people know who he is and not enough people know his music.
Yeah, I think he's like your favorite artist's favorite artist.
Kind of like what James Blake used to be.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think in that position, what, you know, the masses or those who are not your fans think matters more in a sense than it would for a Yeet or something like that.
Okay, so I was genuinely shocked. That was a real reaction.
That was wild. You thought I gave him a 1.
I could not believe, well, because I think we spoke so highly of Lahai, right? And where I am personally, I'm giving this a 9.5 out of 10. This is borderline perfect album to me, right? I think that this album is actually next level. I think I love the vocals, I love the lyrics, I love the production.
9.5 is kind of crazy.
9.5. I think the only thing that holds it back from being a 10 is I think I gave like the Vince Staples album a 10 out of 10. And the thing that makes a 9.5 to 10 to me is like, it's like when you buy a new video game system and you know, like there's this thing called a killer app. Yeah. Right? When you get your for example, like when the Xbox first came out, the killer app was Halo. Yeah. Right? You get the Xbox, you must get Halo. Yeah. Right? And I feel like when like most albums, like there's a song where it's like you don't hear anything from it, but you got to hear this one song, right? And I think that this Lahai doesn't have that one song where if I'm gonna show it to a person, I'm like, you got to hear X song. I think to me, right? To me, it's What If You Hypnotize Me? Sorry. What If You Hypnotize Me? That is like, if somebody showed that to me, I'd be like,
you'd be in.
I'd be all over it. Give me the rest of the album, right? But I think for most other people, there isn't that number one. I can get, to me, I feel as though I cannot pick one and give it to somebody and be like, this is the must hear.
9.5 is kind of high.
But I think the production, I think the songwriting, I love everything about it. I love everything about it. There's not a thing I spent a whole like 45 minutes to an hour getting here, right, to record this, trying to figure out what I don't like. And I was not able to find anything. So I kind of have to give it, if I can't come up with something I don't like, and I think it's doing great things, it's a 9.5 out of 10.
Honestly, Démar, it hurts my heart to agree with you.
Right.
But that logic is sound. And I also like this. Like, I don't have... What did I have in my... Yeah. You know, I didn't have any... So now, going by that logic, I'm like, should I raise my score again? I won't. I won't. Maybe we'll do a revisit, and when we do our year end. Yeah.
I am copping the vinyl immediately. Show me where it is.
No, this is a vinyl cop for me too.
Yeah. Is a vinyl cop at a 7? Look at this guy, bro. What is this guy doing?
And this is why I hate to agree with Démar, because it's like, I don't have big problems with this album. I like this album through and through. Like, this is, so it's like, does that mean that it's a 10 or a 9.5? Yeah. You know what?
For me, I'm just like, I love everything about it. There's so many things I love about it.
So do I. And so I feel like I've done wrong here because, you know, you're saying things that I also agree with in terms of how much you like this album. You like so many parts of it. You're not seeing things wrong with it. You know, it is an album that's kind of pushing genre in a way that we love. Yeah. So how did I end up at a 7?
That's you can see why I was so shocked.
No, I understand. You know what? I think that you know, I want to see what people say about this project. Okay. I do think this is me, like, you know, fighting my way out of the bubble that is album mode. Right. You know, there have been how many times on this podcast, even before we had this podcast, we would come to each other with the same takes about certain albums and be like, you heard this? This is amazing. And I'm trying my best to get out of that bubble of this group think we have.
Right. Here's the thing where I feel actually even more confident with this 9.5 is I remember when Mustafa released the album. I gave that a 9.
Oh, now that you mention it.
Right. And remember, I gave that a 9, and then on pretty much every list that was in like the top 10, top 15, top 20 album of the year. Same thing with Folklore. Remember, Folklore, I think I gave that a 9 out of 10 as well. Everybody talks about So again, I am here delivering the word. Okay, this is a 9.5 out of 10. I'm telling you, this shit is amazing.
No, it is. You know what?
I'm unafraid. I'm not even afraid. The only reason it's not getting a 10 is because it doesn't have that one song that I'm like, you must listen to this.
No, I think we've been right. Maybe someone will tell us, but I feel like any album that we've had rated. So when the Smoke Rise Mustafa, I had an 8.5, I did a 9.5.
Yeah,
and I feel like any album we've rated this highly, we've been right about.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of a time we've been wrong. We rated an album super highly, and then kind of had to turn our back on it. But this album, as soon as I heard it, I thought it would be one of the albums of the year.
Me too.
And I think with that in mind, I think I've been giving a lot of albums a little ratings this year.
Yeah.
So a 7 is almost high in 2023 for album mode. But I'm gonna make this an 8. I think this is gonna be an 8 because I feel like this should be in the upper echelon of albums we reviewed this year. Because I didn't mention it earlier, but this is one of the albums of the year when I heard this project. It's so interesting compared to his last project because it is like, of such an evolution in a way that's like not technically new for him. But man, I'm excited to see what the people had to say about this project.
Me too.
I want to apologize to Sampha and the community as a whole because, I like this project a lot, but the hater in me just, got his creatine today and he was strong. So, this album is really good. This is one of the few albums that I'm like, I know Demar's gonna love this project when we come in.
Oh, you did?
Oh, for sure. I had no doubts, because this is a good project through and through. It's like there aren't bad parts of this project. There are parts that not everyone may like,
right?
For sure, but through and through, this project is good. All our YouTube people, please leave us a comment, subscribe to this video.
I need to hear about this, bro.
I want to hear what everyone thinks. If you have problems with me, slowly rising from a 6.5 to an 8,
I pulled them up. Let it be known that I pulled you up. I pulled you up a score and a half, 1.5.
No, a score and a half. And I think this is probably going to change how I think I do some of my reviews going forward because, sometimes you listen like an album all the way, but you don't give it a 10.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is that? I had someone say that to me for an album that we did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were like, Adriel, you love this album. Why did you not give it a 10? And I still have not yet to give an album a 10 on this podcast. Hopefully that time comes soon. But yeah, this is, one of the best albums of the year. You guys know what to do. Leave us a rating and a review. 5 stars, not a single star less. Of course, find us on your podcast platforms, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. Find us on the interwebs as well. Album Mode Pod on Twitter, Album Mode Pod on Instagram, Album Mode Pod on TikTok. And of course, until next time, know yourself, know your worth.
Later, people. Listen to Lahai. You need to listen to this shit.